The crystalline chamber hummed with the collective breath of 1,000 beings. Representatives from 47 star systems had gathered for what the Galactic Tribunal declared would be the most significant trial in recorded history. At the center of the vast amphitheater, a lone human knelt on the execution platform, wrists bound with energy shackles that pulsed with each heartbeat. Dr. Sarah Chen had known this moment would come. 6 months ago, she had made a choice that violated the most sacred law of the Galactic Confederacy, the doctrine of non-interference. Now, as she faced the towering figure of Executioner Vexthal, his quantum blade gleaming with lethal energy, she felt oddly calm. The charges had been read in 17 languages. Violation of the Prime Directive, contamination of a pre-spaceflight civilization, unauthorized intervention in natural evolutionary processes. Each count carried a death sentence. The evidence was overwhelming, the verdict unanimous. High Magistrate Corthan, a being whose species had transcended physical form eons ago, manifested as a shimmering pillar of light above the proceedings. His voice resonated through quantum fields that translated meaning directly into the minds of all present. Human Sarah Chen, the voice intoned with the weight of cosmic authority. You stand convicted of the gravest crimes against galactic law. You have admitted to providing advanced medical knowledge to the inhabitants of Kepler 438b, directly altering their evolutionary trajectory. Your actions have potentially disrupted the natural development of an entire species. Have you any final words before sentence is carried out? Sarah lifted her head, meeting the gaze of the thousands of alien observers. Insectoid Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in disapproval. The gaseous ethereals dimmed their bioluminescent forms in what their species considered the equivalent of a death glare. Even the usually sympathetic Deltans had turned their empathic senses away from her. I do, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancers. But first I have a question. Executioner Vexthal paused, his blade humming with barely contained energy. In his 300-year career, no condemned being had ever requested to ask a question at this moment. His 4 eyes swiveled toward the High Magistrate, seeking guidance. Speak quickly, human, Corthan replied. Your time grows short. Sarah struggled to her feet, the energy shackles making her movements clumsy. High Magistrate, honored beings of the Tribunal, you have condemned me for saving lives. You have sentenced me to death for teaching a dying people how to cure a plague that would have wiped out 90% of their population within a decade. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was known. This was why she stood condemned. My question is simple, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. If your own children were dying and you had the power to save them, would you let them perish to preserve an abstract principle? The chamber fell silent. Vexthal's blade wavered slightly. The law is clear, Corthan responded, though his manifestation flickered. The doctrine of non-interference exists to preserve the natural order of evolution. Without it, advanced civilizations would shape the galaxy according to their whims, potentially causing greater harm. But you haven't answered my question, Sarah pressed. Not as a magistrate, not as a representative of law and order. As a being who once had children, who understands love and loss. Would you let them die? The silence stretched, pregnant with uncomfortable truths. Sarah looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many beings as possible. You call yourselves enlightened, she said. You've transcended war, conquered disease, achieved immortality for your species. But you've forgotten something fundamental about consciousness, about what makes any of us worth preserving in the first place. She turned to face a section of the gallery where the Deltan delegation sat. Ambassador Thelen, your people are renowned for their empathy. 300 years ago, when the Corvin virus threatened to wipe out my homeworld, it was a Deltan research team that developed the cure. They didn't stand by and watch humanity die in the name of non-interference. They acted because it was right. Ambassador Thelen's cerulean skin deepened to navy blue, a sign of profound emotional distress among his people. And you, Magistrate Corthan, Sarah continued, turning toward the pillar of light. Your own species' history speaks of the Great Awakening, when the Zirthians shared consciousness-expanding technology with your people, accelerating your evolution by millennia. Without that interference, you would still be biological beings, bound to single planets, unable to achieve the enlightened state you now enjoy. The High Magistrate's form flickered more rapidly now. The difference, Sarah said, her voice carrying across the now silent chamber, is that those interventions are recorded in your histories as noble acts. They're celebrated because they benefited you. But when I do the same for beings you don't know, beings who look different, who haven't yet achieved spaceflight, suddenly it becomes a crime. She faced the executioner directly. You want to kill me for being human, for caring too much, for acting when action was needed instead of hiding behind bureaucracy and protocol. But every species in this chamber owes its current existence to someone who violated the very principle you're using to justify my execution. Vexthul's blade began to power down, its lethal hum fading to silence. His voice, when he spoke, carried a tremor the chamber had never heard from an executioner. I cannot. The massive being looked toward the High Magistrate. The condemned speaks truth. My own ancestors were saved by Terran intervention during the Plague Wars. Without human medical assistance, provided freely despite our pre-contact status, my species would be extinct. The confession sent shockwaves through the assembly. Other beings began to murmur, to remember their own histories, their own debts to those who had chosen compassion over protocol. High Magistrate Korthon's form solidified, taking on a more defined shape than had been seen in centuries. When he spoke, his voice had changed, becoming more personal, more vulnerable. The trial is suspended, he announced, the words echoing like thunder through the chamber. We have much to discuss as a confederacy, much to reconsider about the laws we have created and the principles we claim to uphold. As Sarah's shackles dissolved and she stood free in the center of the great chamber, she realized that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice wasn't a sword or a ship or a bomb. Sometimes it was simply a question that forced beings to remember who they used to be, who they could still choose to become. The executioner's blade lay silent on the platform, its purpose forever changed by the simple act of asking why.